Welcome to Nightmare Archives, where stories don't end, they linger. About 70% of you who watch haven't subscribed yet. Hit that button before the next scream finds you. Like, comment, and tell us where in the world you're watching from. Your clicks feed the darkness. Now, let's open tonight's nightmare.
The desert stretches endlessly. Not in miles, not in hours, but in a kind of eternal, unrelenting silence. Heat rolls over the asphalt in waves so thick you could almost drown in them. The sun hangs above like a judgmental eye, burning every color to beige. Here, Jack Kells drives alone. His truck tires hum against Route 66, but the map offers no comfort. GPS blinks uselessly. The road ahead is a ribbon of shimmering gray, folding into the horizon like a mirage that knows his name. Jack is a photojournalist, chasing a story that doesn't want to be found. 5 disappearances along this stretch. All locals, all sudden, all leaving nothing but rumors. Truckers whisper about Route 1919, a road that appears to desperate or careless travelers, and then keeps them. Jack checks his fuel gauge. 1 bar left. Then, ahead, half buried in the heat shimmer, a sign emerges. Silvercross, 4 miles. It's rusted, leaning like it's afraid of something behind it. The paint is fresh. The desert air hums against his windshield. Against every instinct, he turns. The road curves unnaturally, a winding snake through skeleton-like mesquite and salt-crusted sagebrush. Heat waves distort the air, and the horizon trembles. Then, almost impossibly, a building materializes. Neon flickers in the gathering dusk. Mabel's stop. Jack's stomach twists. Relief. Civilization. A diner. Maybe a story. Maybe someone alive. He steps out of the truck, boots crunching on the gritty sand. The sign hums faintly as if alive. He pushes open the door. The air inside is cool, stale, and sweet, with coffee. The jukebox murmurs a half-forgotten tune, keys clattering. The counter gleams as if freshly polished. There's no one inside. Not a movement, not a whisper. Just a cup of black coffee steaming as though poured seconds ago. Jack frowns. The radio on the wall crackles, static first. Then, a voice, faint, almost intimate whispers, "Don't stay long." He freezes. His camera shakes in his hands. The door slams behind him, though the wind outside is still. The desert is gone. Only the diner remains, suspended in a twilight of shifting sands. Jack whispers into the empty room, I don't know where I am." The voice responds, barely audible. "You're exactly where you're meant to be." Jack turns toward the counter. The coffee wavers. Not spilling, just trembling. The jukebox stops. Silence grows thick. He tries the door. Locked. No windows open to the outside. Outside, nothing. Just undulating dunes that seem to wait. Hours pass, or maybe minutes. Time feels different here, heavy like wet sand. Shadows stretch and twist unnaturally. The neon sign flickers one last time, then steadies. Then, a sound. The slow, deliberate shuffle of boots on sand. Approaching. Jack spins. Nothing. Only heat haze rising off the floor. His camera captures a shadow, tall, distorted, not his own. The voice comes again, closer this time. "They're coming! Watch the road behind you!" Jack runs to the door. He yanks at the handle. Stuck. Solid. And then, from outside, a single word echoes through the diner like a drumbeat. "Jack." He looks back. The diner walls pulse, breathing. The shadows stretch across the tiles, curling toward him like black smoke with fingers. The camera clicks in his hand, recording. Not just a memory, a warning. And then the lights go out. Jack woke to the soft, uneven light of dawn, though he couldn't tell how long he'd been asleep. The diner was gone. Or rather, it had melted into the dunes overnight, leaving only sand in its place. The desert seemed to exhale, carrying his breath with it, and with it, the faintest echo of the whisper, "You can't leave." He stumbled to where his truck had been. Nothing. Just sand, pale and shifting, stretching to horizons that seemed to bend like heat-thick water. And then, in the distance, a shimmer. Buildings, a town, streets, lined with houses, shops, a gas station with pumps still gleaming. Windows rattled with the wind, curtains fluttered. Everything looked alive. He saw movement, a car door swinging, a porch swing swaying. His chest lifted with relief. Maybe someone here could help. Then he noticed something wrong. A man crossing the street stopped mid-step. His eyes were wide, blank. His hand hung just above the doorknob, frozen. A woman leaned out of a second-floor window. She smiled, lips slightly parted, her gaze distant. Each human figure was perfectly still, utterly wrong. Not corpses, but not alive either. They were statues, animated by some half-remembered memory of life. Jack swallowed, heart hammering. He approached the man. The air smelled faintly metallic, like blood and dust mixed. The figure didn't blink, didn't breathe, only stared. He turned the corner, and the town sign loomed. Welcome to Silvercross. Founded 1919. The streets stretched empty. Jack's footsteps echoed louder than the desert ever had, sharp against the stillness. He found the local motel, its paint peeling, a sign swinging softly in the morning breeze. Vacancy. Inside, the front desk was pristine. A bell rang when he touched it. A ledger lay open. Jack flipped through the pages, and his stomach knotted. Dates filled the entries, decades of check-ins, all with names of travelers who had vanished elsewhere. Then he saw it. Jack Kells. Room 6 date. Tomorrow. His hands trembled as he touched the page. Tomorrow? How could it know? He explored the town. Stores stocked food that smelled stale yet fresh. Gasoline smelled like rain. But no living thing. No birds. No insects. Only the wind. A faint whispering carried between the buildings, sometimes mimicking his own voice. Jack, come here. Look. By afternoon, the shadows in the alleys seemed to stretch unnaturally. A door rattled where no wind could reach it. A child's laugh echoed from a house with broken windows. Jack's camera captured it, a small blur of motion, gone the next instant. He returned to the motel, exhausted. That night, the town changed. The shadows grew thicker, darker. The whispering became voices, hundreds of them, speaking in chorus. Names of the disappeared, the lost, the damned. Jack locked himself in the motel room, recording into his camera. If anyone ever sees this, I don't know if I'm alone. I don't think I'm supposed to be here. This town, it's waiting for something. Outside, the wind picked up. It rattled the windows and howled through empty streets. He heard footsteps approaching the door, slow, deliberate, crunching over sand. He pressed himself against the wall, listening. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then a voice, faint but intimate, whispered through the cracked doorframe. "You came back." Jack's blood ran cold. He pressed the camera to his chest, staring at the shadows beyond the window. Somewhere out there, the town waited, and he knew, deep down, that leaving was no longer a choice. By the third day, Jack had stopped counting time. In Silvercross, the sun rose and fell without leaving shadows, as if the world itself had forgotten how to measure hours. The streets remained empty, the frozen townsfolk unmoving, and the wind carried whispers that sounded like old memories he couldn't quite place. His phone was dead, no signal. His watch refused to tick past 12, and even his camera, his only companion, seemed to distort the horizon with every glance. Static filled every device. The air itself hummed. Jack trudged up a ridge on the outskirts of town, following a sound that cut through the quiet, a low, mechanical hum, almost musical. At the summit, he saw it, a radio tower, half collapsed, its steel frame rusted and bending, but its blinking red light still alive. Against the sky, it pulsed like a heartbeat. Curiosity and fear pulled him closer. His boots crunched over gravel and sand. At the base of the tower, a small shack sat buried beneath loose dirt and debris. A generator thrummed softly inside. He lifted the receiver of an old wall-mounted radio. Static hissed. Then, a voice, coarse, broken, layered with static, came through. "Jack, you made it! I told you not to stay long!" Jack froze. His name, the voice knew it. The words crawled over him, tickling the base of his skull. Who is this?" he stammered, voice shaking. "The last witness," the voice rasped. "We thought you might leave, but you can't. You never leave." The static intensified, layering voices on top of each other, dozens, perhaps hundreds. The sound twisted, bending into the shape of his own voice, calling out, "Jack! Jack! Help me!" Jack spun toward the tower. Its metal ladder groaned as if something was climbing it slow, deliberate, scraping its claws against the steel. The shadows beneath the tower stretched unnaturally, shifting, like living smoke. Desperate, he slammed the radio down and ran. The wind howled behind him, carrying laughter that was not human. Over and over, the whisper returned. "You're already part of it." He stumbled, barely catching himself on a sand-covered fence post. The tower loomed behind him, impossibly tall now, reaching into a sky that rippled like water. Its red light flickered across the dunes, drawing shadows toward him. Long, jagged, impossible. Jack pulled his camera from his bag, recording, not for posterity, not for memory, for survival. If anyone ever sees this, something is here, something beneath the sand. It knows my name. It knows everything. The first step hit the sand behind him, slow, deliberate, then another, then dozens more. They weren't running, not yet. They were patient, waiting, and then, faint but unmistakable, came a word, carried through static, air, and sand. Jack. The camera's lens fogged as he turned, focusing on nothing, on everything. The tower's light pulsed faster now, as if syncing with his heartbeat. The desert seemed to lean in, listening, anticipating, and somewhere, far below the dunes, something moved. Jack ran. He didn't know how far, didn't know for how long. The sand underfoot shifted unnaturally, giving just enough resistance to make him stumble, then roll. Every step behind him was accompanied by a faint, wet squelch, the sound of something moving beneath the dunes, slow, patient, deliberate. The desert, once passive and endless, had begun to breathe. The heat waves above the sand rolled like waves on a boiling sea. Shadows stretched, contorted, and twisted in ways the sun had no right to cast. Jack dove behind a half-buried pickup truck, gasping, camera pressed to his chest. His lens fogged in the desert heat. Then he saw it. Tracks. Human footprints. Except they ended abruptly, disappearing into the dunes, as if swallowed whole. A low rumble came from beneath. The sand, like the growl of something massive, unseen. The ground under his knees vibrated. Faint at first, then stronger, closer. Jack's pulse raced. He raised the camera and zoomed in, fingers trembling. The sand rippled, then formed the shape of hands, thin, skeletal, clawing upward before vanishing. Breathing hard, he ran again, zigzagging, ears straining. The whispers returned, not in voices, but in the shape of his own memories. His mother calling him for dinner, the laughter of old friends, the sound of a lover's voice he hadn't heard in years. They twisted into taunts. Jack, come back. Stay. Stay forever. Exhausted, he stumbled into a small trailer, half collapsed and buried in sand. Inside, he found something that chilled him deeper than the moving desert, a journal. Pages yellowed, brittle, inscribed with desperate handwriting. We dug too deep. Found bones that weren't bones. They whispered through the wind, said they'd wait until the last man remembered their names. The sand remembers everything. It waits for the living to walk over the dead. Jack's hands shook. The wind outside carried the faintest sound of voice, or his own calling softly, "Jack, help me." He shivered. The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, from the sand, from the sky, from the memory of himself. That night, he tried to sleep. Impossible. Every rustle of sand, every creak of metal from the trailer, felt like footsteps approaching, receding, stalking. He pressed his back to the wall, camera in hand. The whispering grew louder. Hundreds of voices now, layered, repeating, rising in volume until the desert itself seemed alive. And then, a hand broke through the roof of the trailer. Thin, bone-white, claws curled toward him. Jack screamed, swinging the camera like a weapon. The lens caught the shadow long, distorted, moving in impossible angles. He ran again into the dunes, leaving the trailer behind. The desert wasn't empty. It had teeth now, and it wanted him. The desert stretched endlessly, but Jack no longer ran aimlessly. The dunes had led him to something, though he didn't know what. In the distance, he saw a silhouette against the pale horizon, a steeple leaning impossibly, half buried in sand. He approached cautiously. The wind carried the faintest sound of bells, metallic and hollow. The church's doors were warped, but inside, light flickered strangely, as though the sun itself had bent through the roof. The air smelled of dust, decay, and something metallic like old blood mingled with ash. Pews were overturned, splintered wood littering the floor, but candles burned in intricate patterns, covering the altar and stretching into the aisles, forming constellations he didn't recognize. Each flicker cast shadows that moved independently of the flames. On the pulpit, an old reel recorder sat waiting. Jack pressed play. The preacher's voice rasped through. The static, slow, measured, and yet hypnotic. The Lord abandoned us when we dug too deep. We unearthed that which was not meant to be unearthed. The covenant with the sand must be kept. We promised remembrance through blood and dust. Jack reversed the tape, curiosity and terror intertwining. A chorus of whispers emerged. "You've returned. Welcome home." The shadows in the church began to twist and lengthen, writhing toward him. Sand poured through cracks in the walls, cascading like water, filling the aisles, spilling over the altar. Jack's boots sank. His hands clawed at the floorboards. The wind roared through the broken, stained glass, carrying fragments of voices, prayers, screams, names long forgotten. From the corner of the room, movement. Figures rising, pale and thin, indistinct. They were neither alive nor dead, yet they had weight, presence, purpose. The candle's light revealed hollow eyes, faces frozen in silent lament. Jack stumbled backward, heart pounding, and grabbed his camera, recording desperately. The whispers grew louder, now forming words he could understand. "You cannot leave. The covenant remembers. We remember. The sand remembers." The floor beneath him began to vibrate. He tried to step back, but the sand seemed to cling, wrapping around his legs like chains. He tripped, rolling across the floor as skeletal figures emerged from the sand that had poured in thin, faceless, moving with impossible grace. Jack scrambled toward the door, but it was gone. The walls pulsed, bending as if breathing. The light flickered once, twice, and in that moment of darkness, he saw them. Hundreds of faces pressed into the walls, mouths opening and closing in silent screams. A voice, soft, intimate, almost comforting, whispered in his ear, "You belong here, like all who walk the dunes." The wind outside carried the sound of rolling sand and metal scraping. Jack crawled, fell, and finally leapt through a different window. The candle's flames went out. The church behind him collapsed silently into the dunes. When he looked back, only the horizon remained. The steeple was gone, buried, but its memory lingered a mark in the desert he could feel in his chest. Jack stood alone, breathing hard, dust coating his face. The desert had a history, a covenant, and now he knew. He had become part of it. Jack awoke, buried up to his chest, in the fine powdery sand of the desert. The grains clung to his skin, dry and suffocating, yet somehow warm, as though the desert itself had exhaled and claimed him. Panic surged, and he clawed his way free, coughing, eyes streaming, heart hammering. The horizon had changed. It rippled, quivering like the surface of water, refracting the sun into strange, bleeding colors. Shadows stretched impossibly long and folded over themselves, and the sky fractured. Stars, uncountable, rearranged themselves into spirals, constellations unfamiliar to human eyes. Jack raised his camera, documenting the phenomenon, but the lens showed more than he could see with his own eyes. Faces flickered in the dunes, fleeting visions of people he'd never met, staring blankly, mouths open in silent screams. Then came a sound that chilled him deeper than the desert ever could. A memory not his own, or perhaps one he had long forgotten. In flashes, he saw a younger version of himself, uniformed, disciplined, standing guard over an excavation site in the heart of the desert. Men in khaki and green moved with him, uncovering something massive beneath the sand. Bones, artifacts, strange geometrical structures half buried and humming with unknown energy. A deep, resonant pulse emanated from the pit, vibrating through the earth and into his chest. The memory or vision collapsed suddenly, leaving Jack alone on the rippling dunes. Yet the voices remained, hundreds of them, whispering and static, each voice layered over the other, repeating his name. Jack, you found us once. You'll find us again. Jack staggered forward. The dunes themselves seemed alive. Each footfall sank into the sand like quicksilver, leaving impressions that disappeared moments later, swallowed back into the earth. The sand wasn't just beneath his feet, it moved around him, curling, shifting, almost conscious. He paused and replayed footage from his camera. The images distorted, warping into something impossible. In the background of his earliest shots, a figure stood tall, dust-coated, faceless, watching. It was him, or some version of him. The realization struck with a slow, terrifying weight. He had been here before, not just in memory, but in reality. Time didn't flow in Silvercross. It looped, folded back on itself. Each visit erased and rewrote what had come before. The whispers grew louder, louder still, until the static itself became a tangible presence. It coiled around him, a living shroud of sound, pressing into his chest, forcing him to hear his own thoughts spoken aloud. You cannot leave. You are part of the dunes now. Jack fell to his knees. The horizon rippled again, revealing glimpses of the town frozen, yet shifting and figures moving just beyond comprehension. The hollow ones, the dead, the lost. He raised his camera once more. It wasn't just a recording device anymore. It was a mirror, a key, a witness. The desert watched, the dunes remembered, and Jack was no longer certain where he ended, and the desert began. The dunes stretched in all directions, empty, yet full of menace. Jack walked cautiously, boots sinking into sand that seemed to resist, shifting beneath him like a living thing. His pulse raced. Each step echoed unnaturally, as if the desert itself measured his heartbeat. Then, in the distance, he saw a flicker of light, a fire, low and steady, almost imperceptible. Hope. Relief. Perhaps someone else had survived. He approached, careful, silent, camera raised. Around the fire sat 4 figures, gaunt, pale, eyes hollow, faces etched with exhaustion and something more, an unspoken knowledge. They noticed him immediately, but not with alarm, only recognition. You shouldn't be here, one whispered, voice brittle like dry leaves. Jack swallowed. I don't know where I am. I need help. They studied him, almost silently. Then the tallest of them spoke. We've been here a long time. Decades. The dunes, they don't let you leave. Not once you're claimed. Jack's stomach churned. Decades? Time doesn't move here the way you think, said another, a woman with hollow eyes that seemed too old for her face. We stopped aging. We can't leave. We hide. That's all we can do. They called themselves the leftovers, survivors of Silvercross, those who had escaped the first whispers, the first claim of the dunes. But survival came at a cost. Each night, the sand took someone, and those taken returned, changed, hollow. Jack's ears pricked at the sound of footsteps in the sand, soft, deliberate, circling their camp. She's gone, the tallest said suddenly. The sand claimed her. Jack looked up. From the shadows, a figure emerged. It was the missing woman. Her eyes glinted in the firelight. Her lips moved, smiling too wide, a grin that stretched unnaturally across her face. "Please, help me," she whispered, voice identical to what Jack remembered hers. "She's hollow," one survivor said, voice barely audible. "Do not answer. They mimic voices. They mimic memories. They are us, but not us." Jack's chest tightened. His mind raced. Could he trust them? Could he trust anything here? The dune whispered, carrying fragments of his own voice, calling to him, coaxing him closer. "Jack, stay. Stay forever." The hollow woman stepped closer, sand clinging to her like skin. Jack raised his camera, filming, as if the act of recording could keep her at bay. The firelight flickered, casting their shadows long and jagged, distorted by the dunes. The survivors grabbed Jack, pulling him backward. "Don't let her touch you. If she does, you'll join her. One face, one voice, one shell, forever." The desert wind intensified, howling like a chorus of thousands of lost voices. Shadows stretched from the hollow woman, wrapping around the fire, reaching for him. For them. Jack's breath came in ragged gasps. His heart pounded in sync with the pulsing of the dunes beneath them. The leftovers chanted softly, almost like a prayer. "Hide, wait, survive, hide from the hollow ones." The hollow woman's eyes fixed on him. She smiled wider, and the desert watched. Jack knew then the hollow ones were not just survivors. They were warnings, and yet he was too far in to turn back. The desert had grown quiet, unnaturally quiet. Jack stood on a ridge, wind tugging at his clothes, sand slipping between his fingers. Yet the dunes themselves were still waiting. The leftovers had vanished before sunrise, leaving only footprints that looped back on themselves, swallowed immediately by the ever-shifting sand. Jack's camera beeped. He checked the timestamp. The 19th of August, 1999. He frowned. He had filmed these dunes before, hours ago, days ago. But now it seemed years, decades perhaps. Time in Silvercross was not linear. He had seen it warp, fold, repeat. Yet now, this revelation pressed on him like a weight he could not lift. Replaying earlier footage, he noticed something impossible. Behind his younger self, standing quietly, was Jack, older, dust-coated, hollow-eyed, watching, waiting. A pulse of dread rattled through him. He realized then the truth. He had been here before, not just remembered it, lived it, and he would live it again. The diner reappeared on the horizon, illuminated by the late sun. Neon flickered. Mabel's stop. Jack approached cautiously. Inside, everything was pristine. A cup of coffee steamed gently on the counter. He hesitated, then noticed a newspaper lying nearby. Local journalist missing. Last seen on Route 1919. The 20th of August, 1999. Tomorrow. Jack's stomach turned. The camera slipped in his hands. The date, the headline. It was him. Or rather, it would be him. He was already missing. Already recorded in the desert's memory. He wandered the streets. The frozen townsfolk stared, unchanged, eternal. Yet something felt different. The whispers had grown more urgent, insistent. Each voice seemed layered over the last, overlapping. Names of the vanished, cries of panic, laughter twisted by the desert. Jack's reflection in a shattered window made him stop. The face staring back was not entirely his own. Dust-cracked, hollow-eyed, older, fearful, resigned. Another version of him, perhaps another loop, already claimed by the dunes. He backed away, camera raised, capturing everything. Shadows moved around the diner, stretching unnaturally. A soft voice echoed inside his skull, indistinct yet intimate. You cannot leave. You are the story, and the story never ends. Jack ran, but the desert bent reality. Streets led him back to the diner. Windows reflected not the town, but his own eyes multiplied infinitely, staring from every pane. Footsteps echoed behind him, though no one was there. His breath came in ragged gasps. The dunes whispered again, "Jack, remember, again, you are part of us." He stumbled to a nearby hill, turned, and looked back. Route 1919 shimmered in the distance, a ribbon of heat and possibility. The diner sat empty, yet he knew, with certainty, that the desert had already written the end of this story. Jack raised his camera, filming the horizon one last time. The wind carried voices, hundreds, thousands, all saying the same thing. The 9th hour is now. You belong to the dunes. And in that moment, time fractured again. The sun split in. Two shadows bent. His younger self stood behind him, identical yet different, smiling faintly, a whisper on his lips. You've been here before. You'll be here again. The desert exhaled, and Jack disappeared into its memory. Jack stumbled through the dunes, his legs heavy with exhaustion, sand clinging to him like a second skin. The wind carried static, low and insistent, vibrating through his chest, whispering his name. The radio tower he had glimpsed days ago, or maybe years, now appeared with impossible clarity in the distance, taller than any man-made structure should be, its red light pulsing like a heartbeat. The leftovers had warned him, but he had no choice. Every thread of memory, every echo of his own voice had led him here. And the whispers, they demanded it. You must listen. You must answer. Jack climbed the ridge, chest heaving, hands clutching the camera and a battered radio. At the base of the tower, a sinkhole yawned like a mouth, dark, endless, and wet, with shifting sand. The air around it hummed with energy, vibrating in his bones. The static from the radio intensified. He descended. The walls of the pit glimmered with strange light, translucent as glass, embedded with shards of bone and twisted metal. The deeper he went, the louder the whispers became, until they layered into a single chorus, coherent only in intent. We remember you, Jack. We are the ones you buried. And then he saw it. A tower of radios, stacked impossibly high, wires snaking into the sand, intertwining with human skulls, some intact, some hollowed. Each radio emitted the voice he had heard rasping, fragmented, speaking all at once. The static formed a chant, his name, repeated in harmony and discord. From the center, a mass rose, neither fully human nor fully machine. Faces pressed into the radios, mouths opening in silent screams. Fingers, thin and bone-white, clawed at the wires and metal, fusing the living and the dead into one writhing entity. Jack froze. The voice from the first broadcast emerged from the cacophony, clearer, commanding. "We remember you, Jack. You brought us here. You dug too deep, and now you must see." The mass pulsed, and Jack realized it wasn't just voices, it was memory. Every lost traveler, every soul claimed by the dunes, folded into the machine. The desert's covenant was literal now. The sand harvested life, recording it, broadcasting it eternally. "Join us," the voice rasped, "or leave and be erased." Jack raised his camera, recording everything. He tried to run, but the sand beneath him shifted, rising, curling around his boots, his legs, pulling him toward the tower. His own reflection appeared in the shards of glass embedded in the pit, multiple versions of himself, all whispering, all warning, all silent in unison. He screamed. The radios pulsed, and the dunes outside rose like a wave, drowning sound and space. The whispers became tangible, tangible enough to wrap around his mind, bending reality. His body faltered, then lifted, as if claimed by the desert itself. One final broadcast, louder than all before, echoed in his skull. "You are part of us now. You will remember. You will record. You will repeat." Jack felt himself fold into the pit, into the tower, into the whispers. His camera clattered to the sand above, lens still recording. Outside, the dunes shifted back to stillness, the radio tower looming silently, pulsing red, waiting. The last broadcast ended. Decades later, or maybe hours, time in the desert no longer mattered. The dunes stretched endlessly, silent yet alive, as if holding their breath. A group of hikers stumbled across something half buried in sand. A weathered camera. Its lens cracked, its casing fused with dust and sun-bleached bone. One of them picked it up. The lens still functioned. The memory card still held the footage. They gathered around, breathless and uneasy. On the screen, a man appeared, pale, disheveled, eyes wide with terror. He stood in Silvercross, staring directly into the lens. Slowly, he raised a camera, speaking softly into the wind. "If you see the lights, don't stop." The hikers shivered. The footage flickered. Shadows moved across the streets of a town that should not exist. The camera panned to a diner, perfectly intact despite decades of decay in the surrounding desert. The neon flickered, Mabel's stop. And then, the man on screen turned his face cracked, dust-covered, hollow-eyed, and whispered words that had never existed in the original footage. "You already did." The hikers glanced at each other, unease curling into dread. Sand shifted beneath their feet, though the desert was calm. A distant wind rose, carrying voices faint at first, then swelling into a chorus of the lost. The leftovers, the hollow ones, all the forgotten souls of Silvercross. The camera captured something impossible. In the reflection of a broken window, the hikers' own faces appeared stretched, elongated, subtly wrong, as if the dunes were already marking them, folding them into memory. The static from the camera's speaker grew into a roar. Shadows stretched unnaturally. The dunes moved a rolling wave of sand, rising, curling, alive. From the wind, a whisper threaded through the chaos. Soft, intimate, eternal. "We remember. We always remember. The dunes remember." The hikers screamed. Some ran, some fell, but the desert did not chase. It waited. It always waited. Each footstep, each breath, Each fleeting heartbeat was recorded, stored, remembered. The camera lay abandoned in the sand, lens still flickering. Above, the desert sky shimmered with fractured light. The dunes shifted slowly, swallowing footprints, erasing paths, resetting the world. Somewhere, far below, the tower of radios pulsed red. And in the quiet aftermath, the desert whispered a single, endless truth. We are eternal. We are patient. We are the dunes, and we remember everything. The wind carried the sound of hundreds of names, layered, repeating, fading into infinity. Jack's name was among them, and like all who came before, he was gone, yet still watching, still recording, forever part of the dune's memory. The desert waited for the next witness.
You've been listening to Nightmare Archives. If your heart's still beating, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, because what you just heard was only one of many. There are darker trails still waiting to be uncovered. Sleep, if you can.